Good evening. You're watching 6 p.m. and the latest news break that is coming in right now. Big development coming in where Pakistan is concerned. Shamed on the international stage. A big diplomatic slap coming in for Pakistan as the United States and US President Donald Trump has decided to stop all kinds of aid to Pakistan. Now, Donald Trump tweeted just a short while ago, and let me take you through that tweet which was coming in. He said the United States has foolishly given Pakistan more than $33 billion in aid over the last 15 years. And they have given us nothing but lies and deceit. Thinking of our leaders as fools, they give safe haven to the terrorists we hunt in Afghanistan with little help. No more. Now, this could in fact have far-reaching ramifications, because technically right now, if you do break it down, the fiscal health of Pakistan is in tatters, largely dependent on foreign aid. Now, if that gets cut, what would it mean for Pakistan? I'm joined right now by my colleague Hamza, who's getting us the latest reactions back in Pakistan on this big development. You know, Hamza, Pakistan will look at this as a huge development, because let's look at it, you know, the economy of the country is in tatters, mostly supported by international aid. If America cuts the funds, what would be the state of Pakistan?
Well, see, primarily speaking, you know, this tweet actually matters a lot to Pakistan, only for the fact that just recently there was a conference in Pakistan in which Pakistan actually, you know, came back a bit strongly onto the US and said that Pakistan is not going to do any more favors or any help to other countries. It's done more than what it could do. And Pakistan is also not and has never taken dictations on what to do and what not to do. That is something that Pakistan, you know, came up with now with Trump saying that, you know, it is basically would be foolish of supporting Pakistan with billions of dollars. I think Pakistan's reaction is going to be somewhat on the same lines as well, that Pakistan has already said that, you know, the kind of support US is given in forms of finances, primarily focusing on coalition support fund. A majority of that is still pending, and Pakistan says that whatever has been actually inherited has been utilized. In fact, more than that has been utilized in the war on terror as an ally to the United States. So it is actually going to have an impact, but Pakistan, I think, is going to try to retain its position with an offensive response to what Trump administration has to say.
You know, just stay on with me. Yeah, stay on with me, Hamza. Let me also bring in our editor, Shiv Arur, who's joining us for more details coming in. You know, Shiv, this has huge ramifications because it has tangible takeaways. Right through the year, we've seen scaling of funding by the United States where Pakistan is concerned. We've seen complete cut-off for arms supplies. And now, if the money stops, Shiv, if the funds, go completely dry from the United States where Pakistan is concerned, which is already teetering at being called a failed state, what could be its fate?
You know, this is a very unpredictable time, but the certainty with which President Trump has tweeted, he's used the words, "We've got nothing but deceit from Pakistan." You know, mincing no words in this particular statement. Let's for a moment step back, Preeti, and remind ourselves that this is the most powerful man in the world who currently runs a country that Pakistan owes much of its arsenal to and much of its existence to. Basically telling Pakistan all of our history, our entire relationship, our entire past is based on deceit. The United States has foolishly given Pakistan more than $33 billion in aid over the past 15 years, and they have given us nothing but lies and deceit, thinking of our leaders as fools. Look at the words, Preeti. They gave safe haven to the terrorists we hunt in Afghanistan with little help. No more. That's an ultimatum. That's not a deadline. That's basically saying the discussion is over. forget about aid. Now we're going to mean business. The bigger question, and you're right to ask that, Preeti, is what is the next step? When you've painted yourself into a corner and said that your relationship is nothing but lies and deceit for 15 years and that the George Bush and Obama administrations have all basically fed a terror monster, what is your next step? Are you going to simply cut off funding to Pakistan? Are you going to send soldiers into Pakistan? Are you going to teach them a military lesson? All of that appears to be, up in the air at this time because you have a leader as unpredictable as President Donald Trump. So it remains to be seen what the next step and the follow-up to this tweet will be.
All right, we have Mona Alam from Pakistan. She's a journalist. She's joining me on the phone line. Huge development taking place, Mona. If what seems to be, like even Shiv was pointing out, highly unpredictable, but if that tweet is to go by and the funding is cut, where Pakistan comes into question, what lies ahead for your country?
Thank you, Preeti. Happy to put the Pakistani perspective across here. Yes, we have come across this tweet by Donald Trump like a few minutes ago from now, and it's not a matter of astonishment anymore for Pakistan. Like you guys have mentioned yourself, he's the most unpredictable of all world leaders, and even his mandate to be the president of United States came across as an astonishment and as a surprise, and rather as a shock, if I may use more appropriately, for the entire world, not just Pakistan. And yes, he's been a leader on Twitter only. He's been tweeting.
But you know, Mona
most of his
might be a leader on Twitter, but he is the president of the United States of America. If tomorrow he is going to cut the funds to Pakistan, which is already teetering as a failed state, don't you reckon your country is going to be completely in tatters?
Well, Preeti, Pakistan has made it very clear, and categorically Pakistan has rejected any reliance that Pakistan has on these dollars that United States has been talking about. Must I mention that these dollars or this aid that they're mentioning in here, this is the Coalition Support Fund, which is an agreement between Pakistan and the United States, and that agreement abides by both of the countries, in which Pakistan is being given this money, whatever that $1 billion of per year, per annual, that is being paid by the United States to Pakistan, and in return Pakistan has given access to America, to its land routes, to its
what could
air
be,
routes,
yes,
and
we
even
continue
to
to debate what could be the implication of that. Let me bring in defense analyst Kamar Chima. My colleague Shiv Arur is also with us. Shiv, you'd like to take some questions with Mr. Chima.
Hillary Clinton, Mona Alam just now turned around and said that, President Trump is a leader only on Twitter. Mona Alam, obviously doesn't have any power in Pakistan, so it doesn't matter what journalists actually say. But I think the duplicity of that statement coming from Mona Alam is spectacular. It takes your breath away. Calling President Trump a leader only on Twitter, even if it were true, for someone in Pakistan to say that on the subject of the President of the United States pointing a finger at Pakistan and saying that they've been full of lies and duplicity is epic. I mean, that's the only word I can use to actually describe that. I'll come to Mona Alam in a moment, Preeti, but I want to bring in Kamar Chima, who's also with us this evening. Kamar, how humiliating is this for Pakistan? The relationship with the United States based on lies and deceit. Hillary Clinton has hinted at it. She said it specifically. We've had Obama hint at it but never quite say it. President Trump has put you guys into a corner, whipped you and said you're liars, deceitful beggars who deserve to be punished.
Well, the funny part of the story is that United States used to be the anchor of the global order. Right now, United States has landed into isolationism, and this is because of the policies of President Trump. This is not what we are saying. This is what the international community, the European Union, and the Americans are themselves saying. Right now, the point is that
amazing.
Donald Trump does
it's
not
amazing, Kamar
understand
Chima. Isolationism.
Donald Trump does not understand the consequences of not being part of
This is the same country that you. This is the same country that you owe much of your existence to, that you continue to receive a lot of aid from. That same country. I mean, you're biting the hand that feeds, because the person who's feeding you now says you've been bad, you've been deceitful, you've been dishonest, and you deserve to be taught a lesson. I want to bring in Sushant Sareen in on this. Sushant Sareen, decode what Pakistan should take from President Trump's tweet. Sushant Sareen.
So I think what Pakistan will take is quite clear from the kind of stuff you're hearing on your channel from the two Pakistani
Yeah.
There. But I think it is important that while this is one of the most important steps that the US has taken and actually shown its intent on delivering on what President Trump has been talking since August, that we need to turn the screws on the Pakistanis. But I think I would go along with the Pakistanis to this extent that this is not going to make much difference to the Pakistanis. It sends a very strong message. But this will have to be followed up by certain other steps that the Americans will have to take. For example, on multilateral institutions, where they have very often voted in favor of Pakistan getting loans from the World Bank, ADB, or from the IMF. You might have Pakistan going back to the IMF in the next couple of months. Then on Pakistan raising funds from the international bond markets and the international financial markets, I think the Americans can really turn the screws on that as well. We already have the information of the FATF forcing the Pakistanis to start at least taking some sham action, if at all, against the Lashkar-e-Taiba, take over their assets, take over their so-called charities, which are also, agencies for money laundering. So all of those actions will have to proceed apace. Merely cutting off the aid will not be enough. Just one more thing. It's very well for the Pakistanis to say that coalition support funds, is something that the Pakistanis are getting paid for services rendered. But essentially, it is a part of the US aid package to assist countries which help them in fighting terrorism. Clearly, Pakistan has received the money but not delivered on fighting terrorism, or at least those terrorists which attack, countries like Afghanistan, India, or some of the other countries. They have been actually supporting and spawning those terrorist groups. The Americans have finally become alive to this. And to that extent, I think the Trump policy is far more realistic than what the policy of his predecessors was.
Okay, that's a sharp point made by Sushant Sareen. Mona Alam, the country that the United States, which has so far been ambivalent on Pakistan. They've yo-yoed from this way and that because they need you guys in Afghanistan. They need your support. But like Sushant Sareen said, and respond to that point, Donald Trump has basically played it on the line and said it very realistically, and that stings. And this is not about President Trump and his leadership and his qualities, but him telling the truth about Pakistan. This was money that was meant to be used to fight against terrorism. You guys have used it to fuel terrorism. It's not India saying it, it's the United States.
Well, it's not how it goes, and this needs a major correction here. I think this knowledge on part of Donald Trump is very preposterous, to be said in the least. This money was not supposed to be used in any terms except for the fact that Pakistan was granting certain services and certain accesses to America.
Are you going to make this about President Trump's personality?
Let me complete.
He's the President of the United States.
You're
making this about the personality of the President of the United States, Mona. No, with respect. Mona, with respect, this debate is not about the personality of President Trump. Let's face it,
it's not
he has said something very specific.
I'm not letting you know, I haven't said a word about the personality of Donald Trump. If this is what you have heard,
you are talking about the leadership of President Trump, which is a separate debate.
I'm not talking about the leadership of President Trump.
This is a foreign policy issue.
That sentence. I haven't even used that word in this entire conversation that I've made to you the second time that you've come to me.
As Pakistan is concerned, Mona.
Let me be very clear. Categorically, Pakistan is only being paid of the services that the United States has used in here. Pakistan has given certain accesses to its land routes, to its air routes, and to its bases to America to attack to attack in Afghanistan and to wage this war that America has been waging 16 years and only to be put in vain. See, America and Donald Trump is only frustrated of his own failures and the failures of United States that it has been coming across in 16 years. He has been deploying additional troops in Afghanistan, and his war in Afghanistan
he hasn't even been president for a year.
he is not being
He
able
hasn't
to
even been president for a year, and you have the audacity to blame him for that.
For his own failures, he's trying to blame
It's
it on
incredible. No,
Pakistan.
Sushant Sareen, I want to bring you back in on this. No, I'm sorry. This is preposterous. You're calling his allegations against you preposterous. He hasn't even been president for a year, and you're already piling all the failures of those wars on him. Sushant Sareen, do you have anything to say to Mona Alam, or is this just your bread and butter denial, diversionary stuff that you get from Pakistan?
No, it is, but it's also ignorance. Unless Mona Alam is saying that, what used to happen in the past, that there was something called the Rahdari tax, or, you give passage and you take money for that. Clearly, the Coalition Support Fund wasn't for using the ground lines of communication or the air lines of communication which go through Pakistan. It wasn't meant for that.
Yeah.
It was meant for certain operations which the Pakistan army was to conduct, and because the Pakistani army or the Pakistani state is bankrupt or virtually bankrupt or needed money, so the Americans said that we will incentivize you by funding some of these, activities which you carry out. Essentially, if you don't want to put too much of a gloss on it, it was what mercenaries do, that I will do this and I will get paid for it. That was one part of it. The second part of it was that the Americans have given over $33 billion over the last 14, 15 years,
Yes.
out of which only about $12 odd billion were in coalition support funds. The other about $20, $21 billion was military and economic assistance. Now that wasn't coalition support funds. So clearly Mona Alam does not know her facts. She does not know what the reality is. And that's part of the kind of denial regimes which the Pakistani and the excuses which the Pakistanis come up with. The only good thing is that finally the American administration seems to be calling Pakistan's bluff. But my own sense is that this will not be enough. They will need to follow this up with a series of other measures to actually start turning the screws on the Pakistanis.
Kamar Chima, this is not India saying it. This is not the United Nations saying it. These are not, India's friends, sort of close, immediate friends saying it. This is the United States, a country that you've always said happens to be on your side. It's a country that you have a partnership with in so-called fight against terror. How does it feel to get this kind of tongue lashing from President Trump today? Kamar Chima? Kamar Chima? Okay, I think Kamar Chima either can't hear me or we've lost that line with him. I will go back to him in just a moment. But I want to bring in former Chief of the Indian Army, General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, who's also with us. General Roy Chaudhary, welcome to this discussion. The big news break here, of course, is that tweet put out by Donald Trump, the President of the United States. Your reactions to the words he's used and what Pakistan stands accused of by the most powerful man in the world, sir?
Look, this is something India has been saying for a long time. Whatever military aid, whether in funds or in equipment, Pakistan has been getting, it has been for use to support the NATO originally. And every bit of this equipment and money has been used against India. So now, if the President of the United States, which has been providing a lot of funds, a lot of resources to Pakistan, including all its military regimes, its rogue regimes, those funds have been channelized to be used against India. So India at least is very happy. I do not know to what extent the United States will back up what President Trump is saying, but this is exactly what India has been saying also. And I do hope that the United States will now either cut off or drastically reduce the coalition support funds which have been given to Pakistan, ostensibly for operations to be carried out by the Pakistani forces against the Taliban. But they have not been doing it. They've been using it against India.
All right, General, General, if you do look at this coalition support fund, and I'm just going through the fine print in terms of just the kind of monies that we're talking about that could completely run dry for Pakistan. If you look at that, over $255 million, General, comes in from the foreign military financing, which primarily means providing training equipment to an alien nation. If this runs dry, then practically how much of a hit do you think that it will make where Pakistan's terror operations towards its neighboring countries are concerned? Because this money is clearly being used for that.
I didn't get you. Please say again.
General, you know, we're looking at the fine print, we're looking at the breakdown of this coalition support fund, and most of it is, you know, to the tune of $255 million comes in from the FMF, foreign military financing. Now that primarily entails military training, equipment to an alien nation. Now if that gets cut, if that runs dry, how much impact would you reckon will make where Pakistan terror operations towards its neighboring countries are concerned, like India? Because this fund usually goes into that.
Actually, it will not make much difference to Pakistan whether whatever funds the USA gives cuts it off. It will not make any real difference because Pakistan's funding, Pakistan's support is now coming from China. So whatever is getting from United States is bonus, and in case the US cuts off this fund, it really won't make a real difference because Pakistan's now new friend, China, will make up the difference.
All right. Sushant Sareen, you want to come in on that? Because this deficit would sadly could be made up by China.
Well, the Chinese have been giving money to Pakistan in terms of shoring up their balance of payments and stuff like that. But look, frankly, you can't replace the Americans. Whatever else, the Pakistanis might think, the US remains the most powerful country in the world. It's a financial behemoth. You can't go against them. If the US starts imposing sanctions against a country and takes it to the logical conclusion like they did in the case of Iran on the nuclear issue, it's very difficult in this day and age for a country to manage its finances. Even, for example, the Russians and the Chinese were not willing to invest, in Iran as long as the American sanctions were there. Especially the financial ones. The banks would not do business with banks which were dealing with Iran. Now, if supposing after this $225 million, I assume that is what we are talking about right now,
yes,
because that was the thing which was on the anvil. Once this is removed, you will then have the next stage where the Americans will have to see whether this has had any salutary impact on the Pakistanis, and I don't think it will. The Pakistanis will do some grandstanding right now. They will make a show of defiance. There will be a lot of tough talk from the Pakistanis, although maybe behind the scenes they'll also be trying to suck up to the Americans and trying to counsel some patience to them, telling them that, we are going into an election, etc., etc., so our hands are tied. This is precisely the kind of game that the Pakistanis have been playing for the last 16 odd years. Now, if the Trump administration doesn't fall for that ploy, then the next step will have to be multilateral institutions. It will have to be international financial markets. It will have to be, making transactions extremely difficult and expensive for Pakistan through the FATF restrictions and these things. And if all of that does not work, then maybe trade sanctions can be imposed. The US is one of the largest markets for the Pakistanis. And once the US starts taking these decisions and it brings the European allies on board with Japan and some of the other countries also on board, it will be extremely difficult. And I don't think that the Chinese are going to risk their $500 billion relationship with the Americans for the $15 or something which they trade with the Chinese, with the Pakistanis. So I think there are inherent limitations, and Pakistan will finally realize what it means to punch above its weight.
All right. Sushant, before we go into a quick break, do you reckon if there is intent more than just posturing here, then maybe a country like India should also toughen its stand, go beyond Kadi Ninda, look at the most favored nation status, look at the trade ties where Pakistan is concerned?
Well, I would certainly say that is the way to go, because we've been kind of soft peddling this issue for many years now, in fact for 70 years now. I think it is important for us to also start doing what we expect some of the other countries to do. It might not have the same impact as it has when the Americans use these tools against countries like Pakistan, but nevertheless it shows an intent, it shows a singleness of purpose, and it shows a kind of seriousness, which unfortunately hasn't been the case. So invariably after every 3 months, 6 months, with the change of seasons, we tend to start going soft on the Pakistanis. We tend to start missing, that we're not having this love fest or this dialogue with them. I think it is about time we understand that not talking is also, a part of your diplomatic arsenal which needs to be used in a much more effective manner than what it has been used up till now.
All right, Sushant Sareen, thank you for joining us. General Chaudhary, thank you. We're going to continue with the story. A quick break. When we return, we go across to my colleague Hamza, who's getting us the latest coming in from Pakistan at the back of this tweet by President Donald Trump. Well, there's been a big development just a short while back. President Donald Trump tweeted. The US President Trump tweeted, which indicates that possibly the United States of America will cut all aid to Pakistan. I just want to put that tweet out. He said, the United States has foolishly given Pakistan more than $33 billion in aid over the last 15 years. And they have given us nothing but lies and deceit, thinking of our leaders as fools. They give safe haven to the terrorists we hunt in Afghanistan with little help. No more, with an exclamation mark, which clearly goes on to suggest that possibly all aid which the United States gives to Pakistan will now go dry. Joining me is my colleague Hamza from Islamabad, as well as our editor Shiv Arur. Hamza, let me come to you first. Has the language changed? Because over the last 6 months, we've seen many indications by the Trump government that possibly the aid is going to be curtailed. Then now with this explosive tweet coming in, the language in Pakistan seems to have been changing as well. From our friend United States, there seems to be a different tune that Pakistan is following now.
Well, see, Pakistan's tone has actually changed considerably since the time, Pakistan actually understood the fact that now they've got better economic fit in China. And that is, when the tone has actually started changing, not only to that level, in fact, it actually has reflected its tone on the official grounds as well. Where Pakistan has not only stopped the U.S. First Secretary or Secretary of State was actually scheduled to come to Pakistan, and Pakistan was the one who actually told her not to because Pakistan is in anger, and Pakistan wanted to protest on its rights and on the Trump's policy on Afghanistan. So Pakistan's tone has certainly changed. Trump's tweet is something that it really won't hurt Pakistan much because see what Trump administration has done is that what they have said is not something that is reflected on their actions. Trump's administration cannot afford to, go forward with Pakistan when it comes to their position in Afghanistan. That is one very important factor. Secondly, Trump's administration was the one who actually took out Lashkar-e-Taiba and Hafiz Saeed's name from the list of terrorist organizations, most wanted ones, which a list that was handed over to Pakistan. So what Pakistan has actually, has been getting leverages from the Trump administration. On the other hand, Trump, whatever he says on video in public gatherings as an official statement, actually has not resulted in something very tangible on ground. That is why I don't think it's going to hurt Pakistan much because not only Pakistan's got a friend in China now,
right.
Secondly, Pakistan, the coalition support fund coming or not coming really doesn't bother.
Stay with me, Hamza. Let's also bring in our colleague Shiv into this conversation. Shiv, with all that possibly could be wrong with the governance of Donald Trump and all the criticism aside, openly, this is the first time that the United States of America has called Pakistan's bluff with tangible actions.
The most amazing thing about this tweet, and you're right, keeping aside all legitimate criticism of President Trump and his leadership style, this tweet, the most amazing thing about this tweet, Preeti, as you just read it out to our viewers, is it leaves no room for any kind of reversal or U-turn. It's so absolute. It talks about lies. It says no, deceit. It says Pakistan treated earlier leaders of the United States like fools, and it ends with no more and an exclamation mark. This is President Trump, in his usual aggressive sort of style, full of histrionics, basically wagging a finger at Pakistan. But it begs the question, what next? What is the follow-up to this particular tweet that is, so unmissably, has this tone of warning, a tone of menace as far as Pakistan is concerned. On the correct issues, the important issues that Hamza raised about Pakistan changing its tone in the recent past and
having a problem with your video link. Would you rectify that? We want to come right back to you. So please rectify your video link. Coming right back to you while Shiv does that. Let me go back to colleague Hamza, joining me from Islamabad. Hamza, how do you see things right now change? What are you picking up? What would you think would be Pakistan's response in all of this?
I think, Pakistan's response is pretty much already, corrected and defined. They don't need to actually redraft anything what their position is, because just recently, when Yadav's meeting was, on the 25th of December, during those days, there was the first speakers conference going on of various countries. Around 7 to 8 countries actually came to Pakistan, in which Pakistan was very, very clear that Pakistan is not going to take and is not in a habit of taking dictations of doing war. Not only that, that was reiterated and endorsed by the spokesperson of the Pakistan Army itself, that Pakistan has done more than what it could do for everyone. Now it's time to say, you do more. We cannot take many more dictations. So I think Pakistan's position is very, very clear. There's going to be no change in their response. I don't see them, coming with a soft answer to Pakistan, to the United States. They do say that they're an ally to the United States. They want to be friends with them, but Pakistan's now, with the change of tone, I think it's going to be an offensive response.
All right, stay with me, Hamza. Let's bring in Executive Editor Gaurav Sawant into this conversation. Gaurav, that explosive tweet coming in, of course, perception, international perception aside, what could it mean for Pakistan?
This is very bad news for Pakistan for the simple reason that the United States of America and the president there is making it very clear that no more money for Pakistan. So while Pakistan may claim that all it's getting is reimbursement, even those reimbursements will not come now because America is not satisfied. Secretary Tillerson also refused to ratify that Pakistan had done enough to tackle the Haqqani network and Afghan Taliban, which is what he has to do in the US Congress for money to be released for Pakistan. But $33 billion over 15 years and no action against terror. Remember, Pakistan, when it says it has done enough, it is unable to explain how was Osama bin Laden living in Abbottabad. Some of the top leadership of the Afghan Taliban and the Quetta Shura live in and around Peshawar and in Pakistan's Northwest Frontier Province. A lot of this information is gradually being put out in public domain to name and shame Pakistan. So when Pakistan says it will not do any more, there is much more that's in the pipeline for Pakistan, which could mean stopping more Pakistani officers, civilians and others from traveling overseas, and that would be a huge blow to Pakistan. There are several steps that the world intends to take to corner and Pakistan on terror, Preeti.
All right, Gaurav, stay on with us. Let's go across to Shiv Arur, who possibly, I guess, we do have his video link now. Shiv, with what Gaurav is saying, if it goes beyond this tweet, if it goes beyond this, and there are other measures which are followed up where the United States of America is concerned, then it's a huge blow to Pakistan, even though they might look at China to possibly make that deficit now.
You're right. The fact that China is a counterweight and China provides, a lot of funds and funding and, other resources to Pakistan is very well known. But I think it's a little disingenuous for many in Pakistan. We've heard many analysts say that, we don't need the United States anymore. We've got China. It's actually representative of what Pakistan is. It's constantly dependent on the other country. And the second point, of course, is that China is no United States. As Sushant Sareen correctly said, not having the United States on your side is one thing, but having the United States aggressively gunning for you, wanting to, put down punitive action for the things you've done that have endangered the lives of the United States, as, keeping Osama bin Laden did, as Gaurav pointed out, is something that obviously Pakistan is not addressing here.
All right, Shiv, stay on with me. We have former diplomat Kanwal Sibal who's joining us. Mr. Sibal, what do you make of this tweet?
Well, I would have placed much more importance to it if the United States and President Trump himself and Defense Secretary Mattis or Secretary of State Tillerson or Vice President Pence had not made similar statements, putting Pakistan on the map, demanding that Pakistan act against those terrorists to whom they provide safe havens. They have said also that they have given them very clear demands, and they have given them also timelines during which they expect their demands to be met, and that it would be better for Pakistan to be a partner of the United States rather than against it. Now that they have said this repeatedly, both formally and informally, and not taken any action apart from threatening to delay or withdraw a few $1 million of aid, I suppose, does not convince Pakistan that the United States is going to seriously follow up with their threats that these are pressure tactics. And China is there to back them up. After all, China is committing $56 billion of projects in Pakistan. And in that, compared to that, $235 million of aid is nothing. They can easily do without it, that China can easily make up for the shortfall. And China will oppose the United States because they've begun opposing the United States even in the South China Sea, in the East China Sea, where there is actually alliance relationship between United States and Japan and other countries, where United States is bound to come to their aid in case of conflict. With Pakistan, there is nothing of that kind. Therefore, China will not abandon Pakistan. And Xi Jinping just said yesterday or whatever that they are going to make the Belt and Road Initiative, going to push it internationally as much as possible. So for them, this is a very vital geopolitical initiative they have taken. Now, if the United States actually starts applying sanctions, serious sanctions as they applied on Iran and on Russia and on North Korea, then yes, then Pakistan, whatever China support, will be on the mat.
But Mr. Sibal, the kind of language that is, sir, just to come in and to take off from what you're saying, the kind of language that has been circulating now where the United States of America is concerned vis-a-vis Pakistan, do you reckon we are actually possibly moving towards the point where sanctions such as the one imposed on Iran, on North Korea, could possibly come Pakistan's way?
I don't think so. The United States has not been able to deal with North Korea effectively because North Korea is a fledgling nuclear state. But Pakistan is an established nuclear state. And to break off all links with Pakistan would be a very major decision on the part of the United States. With Iran, they could do it because that was intended to prevent Iran from becoming nuclear. And then because of that, having enough diplomatic space to challenge the regional countries, etc., etc. With Pakistan, it's an established nuclear state. So I don't think they'll go that far. Now, whether they can take a step, for example, withdraw this non-NATO ally status from Pakistan and move to sanction some individuals directly involved in harboring Osama bin Laden or harboring safe havens in the IS and others. Those would be possible steps and on the right direction. And they could then begin to make Pakistan think very seriously about dealing with the terrorist situation.
All right. Appreciate you joining us, Mr. Kamal Sibal there, a former diplomat. We're also joined right now by Mr. Sultan Ali, defense expert. He's joining us from Pakistan, Islamabad. Mr. Ali, do you want me to take you through the tweet which President Trump just tweeted a short while back? Because, if you actually go through it, it would leave Pakistan completely shamed and red-faced. Mr. Hadi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. I don't need you to go through with it with me because I have the gist of it.
All right. Mr. Ali, can I just take you through the tweet of President Trump? And don't you reckon that it completely shames your country where President Trump has called you a liar, sir? Deceit that Pakistan has been used to and over years cheated United States by giving false promises.
The pot calling the kettle black, and look at the language which Trump is using. He should be ashamed of talking about his own principles.
So, Mr. Ali, at least you admit that you are the kettle in this part.
I beg your pardon?
Mr. Ali, if you're going to use that analogy, then you do admit at the same time that you are the kettle.
Yes, we have been.
So you're equally black then, but anyway, continue, sir. Sorry.
Yeah, we are equally black.
All right, continue, sir. Continue, make your argument.
Okay, what I want to say is that now Mr. Trump is talking in this manner. He should read history, his very recent history. I'm not talking about 200 years old. And that in this particular war on terror, how much Pakistan has sacrificed, has supported. The Guantanamo Bay prison was full of people whom Pakistan had apprehended and handed over to them. And that is why I'm saying we are black, because we handed over our former allies to the United States. And now, if the USA or its allies, they are losing the war in Afghanistan, they are looking for scapegoats and they are trying to find fault with us, they are sadly mistaken that they can get away by threatening us, because they should know that Pakistan controls the airspace as well as the ground lines of communication, and if we block those, the American troops in Afghanistan are going to stop.
Mr. Ali, do you reckon this would you reckon this threat would actually work for you? Because A, it's a little laughable, sir, and you also would admit it internally that if you actually are going to espouse your sacrifices when it comes down to the fight against terror, you know, history stands testimony on all that Pakistan has done and played when it comes down to terror.
It is the war of a madman by the name of Donald Trump, and if he continues his madness, he is going to pull America down. What to talk about Pakistan?
You know, Mr. Ali, there seems to be it's bizarre. There seems to be so much denial. Let me also bring in Gaurav Sawant, executive editor. We also have Shiv Arur, who's joining us. You know, Gaurav, Sultan Ali is with us, and there seems to be an abject denial that we are in charge of the airspace. If we decide to take that away, you know, these threats are not going to work any longer.
You know, Group Captain Sultan Ali is an accomplished Air Force officer, but if they were in charge of airspace, American helicopters wouldn't have gone down Abbottabad and killed Osama bin Laden. So he should get out of his fool's paradise, which is where Pakistanis are at this point of time. Unfortunately, words alone cannot shame Pakistan, a state sponsor of terror. Hard action is needed, as Ambassador Kamal Sibal, the former Foreign Secretary, very correctly pointed out. Sanctions will have to be put on individuals. Sanctions will have to be put on Pakistan. The moment you stop their army chief, ISI chief and others from traveling overseas, you put them on an international sanctions list, you start putting Pakistanis on international sanctions list, they will wake up, smell the coffee and crack down on terror. That's the only way to make a state sponsor of terror to crack down on terror. Remember, Preeti, Pakistan is the only country which hasn't cracked down on terror despite losing 150 children in that army public school massacre in Peshawar, and yet Pakistan continues support to terrorists like Hafiz Mohammed Saeed and Maulana Masood Azhar. So words will not shame them. Sanctions is the only way forward, Preeti.
Shiv, would you want to come in on that?
You know, I completely agree with everything that Gaurav just said, of course. But, you know, the point that he made about how it's not just about words, but actions that will shake Pakistan is so true. You know, right now, the only rhetoric we're getting from Pakistan and from Group Captain Sultan Ali, who's a very respected individual, unlike many others who are far less reasonable, is this whole China factor, Preeti, which is preposterous. Because, you know, having China on your side is not the same thing as not having the United States on your side and having the United States breathing down your neck. You know, Ambassador Kamal Sibal said the United States may not go as far as imposing full sanctions on a nuclear state like Pakistan, but punitive measures under that sanctions threshold are still very much possible, and Gaurav will bear me out on that. So all this rhetoric about Guantanamo Bay and airspace and all those rhetorical threats, you know, that's just bluster from Pakistan when it is facing, and the word you used was right. Red-faced and shamed is precisely, Preeti, what Pakistan should be feeling right now. So they're grabbing for straws. Pakistan, war against terror, the fact that this money doesn't really help them, you know, the fact that, you know, all this goes into helping the United States and terror groups operating inside Afghanistan. This is Pakistan stung like it has never been stung before. They're still trying to digest President Trump's words at this point of time. So I think we should give Pakistan a little bit of leeway if they fumble over the rhetoric right now, Preeti.
All right, you know, we don't have Group Captain Sultan Ali with us, but Hamza, was there a build-up to this? Was Pakistan actually expecting this? Because, you know, you brought it on over and over again in your chats, where you've said that this is expected. The language was slowly changing where United States of America was concerned from our friend. And it was very clear that at least international perception-wise, Pakistan has clearly been making its stand towards China quite clear.
Well, that is true, that Pakistan actually, you know, has been making its stand very, very clear. Now, Pakistan's change of tone actually was very visible since the time Trump announced its policy for Afghanistan and the region itself. And since then, Pakistan actually has been on the offensive, and I would be, you know, wrong to say Pakistan has been ever using defense-full lines, because this is what Pakistan has been doing on the official grounds, on personal statements going on towards the Trump administration, and this has actually worked till now for Pakistan, only for the fact that even when US was actually taking on Pakistan, it only took a recovery of one couple, the Christian couple that was actually recovered from the Pakistani side of the border in a joint operation conducted between NATO and the Pakistani armed forces. That actually, just changed the tone of United States immediately. They actually went on to hail Pakistan's efforts, thank Pakistan for their, efforts going forward in recovery of those two US nationals. So I think Pakistan is going to stick to the same, because only for the fact that not only Pakistan is no more dependent when it comes to coalition support fund or aids coming from the United States itself. Pakistan is very much depending and relying on China to take it forward through the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and the World Road Project. And I think that is showing in Pakistan. I see projects and development, work being done across Pakistan, and there is a lot of Chinese presence. Wherever you see them, they are actually on ground and making their presence be felt. So Pakistan, I think, is going to stay on the offensive as a response to what Trump had to say about Pakistan. Just like Mr. Sultan Ali was saying, Pakistan is going to keep going back into history, telling them that the 13-year-old or the 14-year-old friendship has actually resulted in a lot of sacrifices from Pakistan's side as well, which Pakistan now says is not going to be rendered anymore.
All right, gentlemen, thank you there for joining us. We're going to continue getting our viewers the very latest on this developing story. Let's just see what exactly, in terms of tangible action, comes at the back of that tweet by President Trump.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.